Continuing. This morning we had a discussion from Srimad Bhagavatam on a verse from Grandfather Bhishma's passing, which is chapter 9 of Canto 1. So I thought we could just continue because it was a nice discussion this morning. If you like to chant verses, we'll chant 1.9.18. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Isha Vai Bhagavan Sakshat Ajo Narayana Kumar Mohayan Mayaya Lokam Gudhas Charati Vrishnishu Ishavai Bhagavan Sakshat Ajo Narayana Kumar Mohayan Mayaya Lokam Buddhas Charati Vrishnishu. This Sri Krishna is no other than the inconceivable, original personality of Godhead. He is the first Narayana, the supreme enjoyer, but he is moving amongst the descendants of King Vrishni, just like one of us, and he is bewildering us with his self-created energy. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. It's a long purport. The Vedic system of acquiring knowledge is the deductive process. The Vedic knowledge is received perfectly by disciplic succession from authorities. Such knowledge is never dogmatic, as ill-conceived by less intelligent persons. Mother is the authority to verify the identity of the father. She is the authority for such confidential knowledge. Therefore, authority is not dogmatic. That was a very full way of dealing with dogmatism. In the Bhagavad Gita, this truth is confirmed in the fourth chapter, 4.2. And the perfect system of learning is to receive it from authority. The very same system is accepted universally as truth. But only the false arguer speaks against it. For example, modern spacecraft fly in the sky. And when the scientists say that they travel to the other side of the moon, men believe these stories blindly because they have accepted the modern scientists as authorities. The authorities speak, and the people in general believe them. But in the case of Vedic truths, they have been taught not to believe. Even if they accept them, they give a different interpretation. Each and every man wants a direct perception of Vedic knowledge, but foolishly they deny it. This means that the misguided man can believe one authority, the scientist, but he will reject the authority of the Vedas. The result is that people have degenerated. Paragraph. Here is an authority speaking about Sri Krishna as the original personality of Godhead and the first Narayana, even such an impersonalist as Acharya Shankara has said that in the beginning of he has said in the beginning of his commentation on Bhagavad Gita that Narayana, the personality of Godhead, is beyond the material creation. There's an asterisk with the quote from Bhashya of Shankara. The universe is one of the material creations, but Narayana is transcendental to such material paraphernalia. Two more paragraphs. Bhishma Dev is one of the 12 Mahajans who knows the principles of transcendental knowledge. His confirmation of Lord Sri Krishna being the original personality Godhead is also corroborated by the impersonal Shankara. All other acharyas have also confirmed this statement, and thus there is no chance of not accepting Lord Sri Krishna as the original personality of Godhead. Bhishma Dev says that he is the first Narayana. This is also confirmed by Brahmaji in the Bhagavatam 10:14-14. Krishna is the first Narayana. In the spiritual world, Vaikuntha, there are unlimited numbers of Narayanas for all the same personality of Godhead and are considered to be the plenary expansions of the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, the first form of Lord the Lord Sri Krishna. Wait a minute. The first form of Lord Sri Krishna first expands himself into the form of Baladev, and Baladev expands in so many other forms, such as Sankarshan, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, Vasudeva, Narayana, Purusha, Rama, and Nrsimha. All these expansions are one and the same Vishnu Tattva, and Sri Krishna is the original source of all these plenary expansions. He is therefore the direct personality of Godhead. He is the creator of the material world, and he is the predominating deity known as Narayana in all the Vaikuntha planets. Therefore, his movements amongst human beings are another sort of bewilderment. The Lord therefore says in the Bhagavad Gita that foolish persons consider him to be one of the human beings without knowing the intricacies of his movements. Last paragraph. The bewilderment regarding Sri Krishna is due to the actions of his twofold internal and external energies upon the third one called marginal energy. The living entities are expansions of his marginal energy, and thus they are sometimes bewildered by the internal energy and sometimes by the external energy. By internal energetic bewilderment, Sri Krishna expands himself into unlimited numbers of Narayanas and exchanges or accepts transcendental loving service from the living entities in the transcendental world. And by his external energetic expansions, he incarnates himself in the material world amongst the men, animals, or demigods to reestablish his forgotten relationship with the living entities in different species of life. Great authorities like Bhishma, however, escape his bewilderment by the mercy of the Lord. So the thought was how to connect this morning's verse, which there was lively discussion about, and this verse, which is a bit of a challenge, how the two exactly connect. because the morning verse, Bhishma Dev directly is speaking to Yudhisthira, uh, where he's asking or directing Yudhisthira to not lament the misfortune that has come, misfortune in the sense that the battle is over and Yudhisthira has become the emperor, which was Krishna's plan, also the Vedic law, but there were some persons standing as obstacles. And, persons that Krishna didn't want to be in charge of the world. And so they were stubbornly holding that position of forcing Yudhisthira out and forcing themselves in. So Krishna didn't want that, and it was taken care of by a war. We heard this as well. Fortunate for a pious personality like Yudhisthira is thinking that all these people had to suffer. Men had to be killed. Women and mothers and their the husbands are gone. So they're with families that are unprotected, etc., etc., etc. So lamenting, feeling badly because of that circumstance, and thinking, why? Because I want to become the emperor. And so all this destruction and Vedic disruption by unprotected women abundant throughout the land. So feeling very sorry. So Krishna was not just cheering him up, he was giving him transcendental knowledge that all this has happened by the plan of the infallible Lord. He wanted that these obstructionists be removed. He wanted that you become the emperor. And so they just accept it. So there's this discussion. It's not an totally unfamiliar discussion. How to deal with somebody that's undergone, using Prabhupada's language, their tribulation. How, when someone is undergoing tribulation, how to help them get beyond the tribulation, or even as the discussion goes, to see that the circumstance of tribulation is actually a mercy of Krishna, which is difficult to see when someone's going through tribulation. So we had that nice discussion, and I thought there might be a nice connection between that idea and this evening's idea, the next verse. But the next verse there isn't a very explicit connection, but I want to draw a connection. The next verse is drawing Yudhishthira's attention, which means drawing our attention to Krishna's position. And the connection, so there is details and details about Krishna's position, very similar to other statements within the Bhagavatam, as is being referenced. For example, that Krishna is the origin of so many Narayanas was demonstrated before the eyes of Lord Brahma when he stole the calves and cowherd boys, and Krishna manifested himself as identical forms of Narayana for each of the calves and each of the cowherd boys. And Brahma saw the cowherd boy form and the Narayan form. So many cowherd boys, so many Narayans, so many calves, so many Narayans. So then he understood that Krishna is even the cowherd boys, because the original cowherd boys were off in a cave, and as were the calves. But there they are, duplicates. Not exactly duplicates, but forms looking duplicate, and each of them being Krishna's expansion. So living at cows, or calves in this case, calves and jiva souls, cowherd boys. They're individual jiva souls. And the individual jiva soul Krishna expanded purposefully for a pastime, many layered pastime, where the cowherd boys were so much in physical likeness with the original cowherd boy that the mothers didn't even detect that there wasn't their son. It was just a model like their son, or the son was like a model of the original Krishna. So that pastime is being indicated here that Krishna, because the statement is being made by grandfather Bhishma that to Yudhishthira that Krishna is the original Narayana, or the source of all Narayans. And other statements, he's the cause of all causes, and so forth and so on. Now these are very standard statements that are found within the Vedas, like for example Bhagavad Gita. Matak parataram nanyat kinchid asti dhananjaya. There's no truth superior to me. And truth in this sense means the source of, the absolute truth is the source of all other truths. There's no truth superior. There's no one from whom Krishna comes, but from Krishna all others come. He's the original. Or that Krishna, aham sarvasya prabhavo matak sarvam prabhartate. Krishna is the source of everything, sarvasya, matter and spirit. He's the source of matter and spirit. He's the source of all things. And also expansions of himself, expansions of living entities, expansions of the material nature. They're all expansions of Krishna. In I like Prabhupada's words. There are two things existing. There's Krishna and there's Krishnas. And there's no third thing in the creation of God. And that's something that exists that's not from Krishna. Or it's not Krishna's. It's all Krishna's, or Krishna himself. Nice. Very tight, compact, simple. And elevated souls are in principle accepting, and as they become more elevated, they can perceive Krishna is within everything, everything is within Krishna. So then the Upanishadic double talk, I call it double talk. Krishna is inside everything and he's outside everything. He's very near and very far away as well. He walks and he does not walk. He's within and he's not within. He's beyond. So double talk. But it's not conflicting type of double talk. It's a statement of Krishna's position, and then there are other statements that expand or explain those Upanishadic statements. There's symmetry within the Vedas. So the connection between the previous verse to Yudhishthira about don't lament, but be accepting, and understand the situation that we now have before us is all Krishna's mercy, because he's all merciful. There's not merciful and then not merciful. He's all merciful. My understanding, one connection between this morning's verse, text 17 and text 18, has everything to do with the definition of the greatness of Krishna. Why should we accept? Because Krishna is great. In Nectar of Instruction, I'm going to launch in a little direction over here and then connect it back to this conversation. In Nectar of Instruction, text number 7 is an important verse in Nectar of Instruction. It's this explanation of how to perform our sadhana properly, since we're all engaging in sadhana bhakti. And in sadhana not properly performed, it may be difficult. Not necessarily difficult, but not the sweetness of Krishna and Krishna's name may not be something that we experience when we're engaged in the sadhana, the practice of chanting Krishna's name. The verse speaks of it, the taste of mystery or rock candy. When one has jaundice, it's just the opposite of sweet. Anyone here had jaundice and had to experience? I had that happen. And rock candy tastes bitter. It's not a story. It's true. True story. Then, however, the nature of rock candy is sweet. But when one has jaundice, rock candy tastes bitter. So, like that, the chanting of the holy name or other aspects of sadhana the sweetness of them may not come. But the fact is, the name is not different than Krishna, and Krishna is very sweet. Madhura, very sweet, transcendentally sweet. But the transcendentalness of Krishna's sweetness may not be experienced because of the diseased condition that we find ourselves in, where sweet doesn't taste sweet. And to get over that diseased condition when chanting the holy name, Rupa Goswami writes in that verse, there's 2 recommendations or mandates. And that is how one regards the name when engaged in practice, and the method of doing this proper regard for the name over a long period of time, or every day, sadhana, that's every day, whether it tastes this or tastes that, sadhana every day. So that's one principle. Then a little bit more challenging is on the affective side, and that affective side is where there's a regard for the name. Adarat is the Sanskrit word. Adarat. In the word for word, Prabhupada has translated it as chanting carefully. And commonly, adarat means to respect. So, same here. This verse 18 that we read just this evening, compared to verse 17, which we read in the morning. Why, Yudhisthira, should you accept what I'm saying besides I'm your grandfather and you look up to me as an authority that you respect? The respect should go to Krishna because he's the one that one is to have proper respect for. And you as, of course, Yudhisthira is not a sadhaka. We're sadhakas. And if we, to be able to accept the sweetness of misfortune, or the sweetness of tribulation is the word that Prabhupada used, is to accept that the very nature of Krishna is sweet, whether it may taste like that may taste like bitter, or it may taste very sweet. And it has everything to do with respect. So what is there respectable, my dear Yudhisthira, about Krishna? And here, let me recite some of the ways. Some of the ways that help determine our renewed respect for Krishna, not like Yudhisthira had a problem that he was disrespecting Krishna, but he was overwhelmed by the circumstance and therefore forgot the respectful way that he should regard that anything that's coming from Krishna. He was looking, in other words, at the consequences, the material consequences. And because of the material consequences, people are dead. That's misfortune. And I'm the cause. That's another misfortune. But if there's much more going on than all of that, then how do I see the much more going on? Starts with this method of descending knowledge, then when by authority one can understand. And one can understand in such a way it's not dogmatic in the pejorative sense, but it's authoritative in the transcendental sense. Isn't it nice how Prabhupada has put this purport together? So that Vedic process is not dogmatic, as some people say. It's authoritative, yes, but that authority is not just a dogma dictating authority any more than the mother is the dogma dictator of who the father of the child is. She's the authority that has the answer. Who is my father? She knows. She is she may not have authority for all things, but she has authority for that thing. And Krishna has authority for all things. And because Krishna is the authority and Krishna speaks, for example, in Bhagavad Gita, is to be accepted. Because Krishna is the authority. And not only Krishna says, but confirmed that Krishna says, the great acharyas, etc., 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 etc. So authorities tell us that we should see Krishna in these ways. When you see Krishna, going backwards, seeing Krishna in those ways means it's very easy to respect him. Adarat. The notion, specifically something that impacts all of our lives. The notion that the holy name of Krishna is not different than Krishna is not something new. We've all heard it millions of times. Depends on how long you've been around Krishna consciousness, but the name of Krishna, Abhinatvam Nama Namino. Abhinatvam Nama Namino. The Abhinatvam, the quality of non-difference or non-difference-ness, Abhinatvam. There's no difference between the name and the person named. Krishna and the person. Name and person are non-different. So if we had the experience that name of Krishna and the person Krishna are non-different, we wouldn't have any struggle with our job, with our sadhana, because Krishna is sweet. But we struggle sometimes, some of us at least, struggle with sadhana. Or maybe not struggle with sadhana, but if we step back and take a look inside, how are we doing? The answer is we're not there yet. We don't have that realization of the sweetness of Krishna's name. Or as Lord Chaitanya says in Shikshastika, Nanuraga, I have no attraction. I'm chanting, I'm reading, I'm following, but I don't have, I'm not experiencing bhava, or to speak of further stages of bhakti. For however long I've been chanting, it's not my experience. So it's not something's wrong with the process, it's something wrong with how we're approaching the process. The advice given in Nectar of Instruction is adarat and audinam, two things, with great respect and every day. So we got the everyday part, but where's the great respect part? Even everyday sadhana for years and years and years. So what's missing? Where's the gap between where we are and what we wish to experience? Is this having a proper regard for what the name is? So it has everything to do with verse 17, verse 18. Verse 18 is, here's some glories of Krishna. Verse 18 is, here's some of the glories of Krishna. And these glories of Krishna may help us to understand and thus respect the position of accepting Krishna's arrangements for us as mercy, because his nature is he's merciful. My experience may be, this is the morning verse, my experience may be something other than mercy. Tribulation doesn't look like and feel like mercy. But that has everything to do with my superimposing my expectations of what happiness should look like, or good fortune should look like, or a person that has this bhakti unto Krishna, it should always be the way that I think it should be. And sometimes it's not the way that we think it should be. So that's called the tribulation. Our expectations aren't met, and it's something else. And to us and to many other people, they look at the situation and it's a tribulation. It's not mercy. That what the verse in the morning was, Yudhishthir, everything that Krishna does is mercy. For Krishna, there's no favoritism or punishment, and for a devotee. And you, Yudhishthir, you're seeing tribulation. You have your reasons for experiencing or feeling tribulation. But step back and take a look at where is all this coming from. And it's all an orchestration of Krishna's plan. I mean, there's a similar, different, but similar experience when the purpose of Krishna's appearing on earth was the appeal of the Brahma leading the demigods saying, "Help, too many demoniac kings on the surface of the earth, help." So Vishnu said, Certainly I'll help, but I'd like you all to take birth on earth first, and then you can assist me. Not like Krishna needs assistance, but he gave them an opportunity to serve in his Prakat Lila, his manifest pastimes. And in his Prakat Lila, demoniac kings were removed, Kurukshetra battlefield. An instrument for that removal were the Pandavas, etc. And so they're instruments of Krishna's plan to do what the demigods had requested. And after the Kurukshetra battle was over, and all the demoniac kings had been removed, then Krishna began to consider, my job is not done yet. My appearance in this world has not been complete yet. And in this dynasty of the Yadavas and Vrishnis, they're very powerful persons. There's very powerful persons. Many of them are devatas, and the descendants of the devatas on earth over a period of time, because Kali Yuga is going to begin after I depart. If I depart and those kings still remain, they can become corrupt, and they'll be invincible. Two things, and so they have to be removed before I can leave. There's a scene. Brahma came when Krishna was seated alone, and purposefully, in that secluded situation, he informed Krishna, you fulfilled your promise. You relieved the earth of the burden of demoniac kings. If you so desire, you can now return to your eternal abode. So this is Krishna's contemplation. If I return to my eternal abode, my job is not done yet, because the Yadu dynasty clan, no one can defeat them. So I have to make an arrangement so they can remove themselves. They came to take part in my pastimes. They've had that transcendental joy. Now they have to be removed. They have to remove themselves. And so it was Krishna's arrangement that the offense to the sages took place, and the sages cursed the way that they were cursed, that this iron club will be the destruction of your entire dynasty, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Uddhava understood 2 + 2 = 4. It was easy math. Krishna is planning to leave the world. Before Krishna leaves the world, he's making this arrangement so the devatas can go back to their heavenly realm and continue in the service they were doing before my appearance in this world with my pastime, my Prakat Lila. So they should return. And so Uddhava understood Krishna is planning to return. So in Dwarka, he went to Krishna and said, please take me with you. Don't leave me here alone. Krishna left him alone. How's that for a tribulation? Not just cousins, but, transcendental associates. And Krishna left him alone. Krishna left him alone. What's the lesson? Krishna is not kind after all. Krishna had some service for Uddhava. And Uddhava, so the emotion that Yudhisthira was feeling, expressing, or it was being addressed in text 17 of this chapter, is very similar to the emotion that Uddhava was feeling after Krishna's departure. The circumstance is different, but the tribulation it's a transcendental emotion. Although Uddhava's like Yudhisthira, like grandmother Bhishma, he's a Mahajan. Yudhisthira is not in the Mahajan category. Uddhava is not in the Mahajan category. He's not one of the 12, but he's very intimate associate of Krishna, and he understands things about Krishna that most of us don't understand. But still, because his transcendental attachment for Krishna made it difficult for him in terms of transcendental emotion of separation to feel separation from Krishna, although he knew this is Krishna's plan. So just be accepting of it. It's interesting. I find it interesting. Transcendentally interesting. Fascinating. The word bewilderment is used several times. The bewilderment of the illusory energy causes living entities to have their real knowledge of Krishna covered, not gone, just forgotten. And in that forgotten state, then there's all kinds of mundane emotions, including mundane bewilderment, that I just can't understand. And some people go mad. That's not the transcendental madness of the gopis feeling separation from Krishna. It's literal madness. Literal madness. Or even the person that's sane is mad, and the mad person is another kind of mad. But they're all in an illusory state, bewildered by the illusory energy. And some persons are not bewildered. Grandfather Bhishma is one. That's the characteristic of the Mahajan. It's not like he has no feelings. He can understand the feelings of Yudhisthira and help Yudhisthira carry on with the greater plan of Krishna was that there be before he can leave this world, there must be a righteous king to rule the world. Then one might say, well, gosh, if that's what Krishna wants, then why Kali Yuga? Where's the virtuous anybody? Well, to speak of a virtuous king, if you have the opposite of a virtuous king, then what's the condition for the citizens ruled by not anything other than virtuous ruler? Chaos. The body without a head and the body without arms. Or arms that are powerful and head that's powerful but lacking in virtue. So it's chaos. So why does Krishna sanction chaos if he's all merciful? It's another version of the same thing. And so he's sanctioning, not wishing, but sanctioning the improper use of free will of living entities according to the modes of nature. And the modes of nature turn with the wheel of time, and here comes Kali Yuga. Now, the good fortune is Krishna, in the midst of Kali Yuga, or the midst of tribulation or misfortune, is the good fortune. That good fortune is the opportunity Come on in. We're waiting for you to get settled. Come on in. The good fortune is Krishna consciousness. Let's do that again. In the midst of Kali Yuga, there's a means in the midst of Kali Yuga for persons who are willing to properly use their free will to connect again with what they've forgotten. Coverings removed, disease removed, the sweetness of Krishna experienced, and the go home back to Godhead position made available even in the midst of Kali Yuga. And while, let's say, well, that sounds attractive, sound attractive is not enough. It's like do sadhana where we don't have adara for the name, then it's like bitter. Tastes subjectively. And how long can we do the bitter? Some persons may be with faith and dutiful, and so they do the faithful and dutiful sadhana without really going to the next, without the fullness of what the experience is meant to provide us. We're not free from the disease yet. And the positive is the everyday. This is just taking this text 7 language and just emphasizing it, underlining it many times. It's having an experience. It's a little distracting. Small space and a lot of people. This little sound makes it very, at least for me, a little difficult. We need to dial up the respect, dial up the acknowledgement of beyond just the principle of the acceptance, the conscious acceptance of the name, the Bhagavatam, the message of Krishna, the holy Dham, the abode of Krishna, the devotees of Krishna, the deity form of Krishna. They're all in this transcendental realm, and somehow in the midst of this misfortunate Kali Yuga, we're being given all of that. And so we're not many out of the total number of people in the world. It's small number, small percentage, and a small number. So how to dial up the transcendental fortune that we've been given is, according to Hari Bhakti Vilas, there are recommendations for how to engage in sadhana bhakti, specifically how to engage in chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, which is what text number 7 is speaking about nectar of instruction. And one of those things is hearing the glories of the holy name, hearing the power of the holy name, hearing the merciful nature of the holy name. So we can hear again and again and still, you know, yeah, I've heard that one. And it doesn't really go in, but keep hearing it anyways. That's the adarat, or audinam, every day, regularly hearing. And then making it a genuine personal attempt, which is what the connection between verse 17 and verse 18 is the Bhishma Dev has realization. Yudhisthira has gotten covered by these emotions of deep regret for the the consequence of being engaged in a battle, even as the consequence of a battle that Krishna wanted, the removal of demoniac kings. And then there's the removal of the virtuous kings that comes after that, which is, it's an easy thing to become puzzled by. How can the virtuous members of the Yadu dynasty become involved in a fratricidal war, being intoxicated with rice wine? How can that happen? By the plan of Krishna, that's how it can happen. Because otherwise, how can they be destroyed except them destroying themselves? It was they're indefeatable. So they have to destroy themselves. That's how to remove the thorn with the thorn. And then Uddhava comes back because Krishna sent Uddhava to go visit the sages in Badrinath, the sages of Narayana Rishi and their followers, and he couldn't bear the separation from Krishna, so he came back. So there's Krishna in Prabhas, seating underneath a young banyan tree, where he's soon going to be shot by the arrow of the hunter. That hasn't happened yet, and it's just about to happen. And there's Uddhava, comes back, doubles back, and specifically, Uddhava says to Krishna, and it just so happens that Maitreya is hearing this conversation between Krishna and Uddhava, just the last words before Krishna leaves her with Uddhava, where Uddhava says many glorifications. Could you please explain that which was heard by you from Lord Brahma? No, that which you imparted to Lord Brahma. So the Chatur Slokis of 2nd Canto, Chapter 9, are spoken by Krishna to Brahma, the synopsis of the whole Bhagavatam. As you explained to Brahma, if you feel that I'm qualified, can you explain? Same to me. So the authoritative statements, now it doesn't give that section right at that place. It's given elsewhere in the Bhagavatam, but it's in the Bhagavatam. And then Krishna sent him again and says, very soon you're going to meet Vidura. So give these teachings that you heard from me to Vidura, because Vidura is also a qualified person like you. There's some service for you. So please go. He departs. Shortly thereafter, that's Krishna's last words. His plan was to appear and fulfill the request of the Devas. And then after fulfilling the request of the Devas, those who would assist him and take part in his prakat lila, they would go to their unmanifest state back to where they came from, and then he would go back where he came from. Prakat lila complete. And in between, lots of things that are bewildering. How to get unbewildered when you're bewildered. These five things. The process of devotional service, the process of sadhana bhakti is meant to help restore the original consciousness of living entity. And of those practices of sadhana bhakti, these five most important include what we're doing right now, just hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. And hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, it helps to have, more than helps, it's essential to have the commentaries of our great acharyas because they're providing the realized state of knowledge of how this fits together with that, fits together with the other, and how to get the whole picture. But even if one doesn't have all of that just by hearing the sound, and especially the sound of Srimad Bhagavatam, it takes a special place in the lives of sadhakas to immerse themselves, and then corollary literature that expand from the Bhagavatam. And our devotional texts, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and Nectar Upadesh Amrita and these devotional texts. It's medicine to help us become free from the diseased condition, and part of that is to gradually, at least, understand and stay in the mood of respect for the f- worthy of respect Supreme Person and forms that He takes to allow us direct access to Him. We can hold the Bhagavatam in our hand. We can recite it ourselves and in the association of others. That sound vibration is a fully transcendental sound vibration. The name, the deity form, the holy place, the opportunity to serve devotees. Now, the opportunity to serve devotees on the one hand, and on the other hand, the opportunity to serve devotees means an opportunity to offend devotees. We don't want to offend devotees. That has some problems. But we need devotee association. It's a dilemma, right? Why would Krishna provide devotee association? Because in devotee association you can make offense, then you got a big problem. So Krishna shouldn't provide devotee association, right? Krishna shouldn't have Kali Yuga, right? Because otherwise he's not kind. Because how can you have a Kali Yuga when you're kind? Who wants Krishna's job? His position of facilitating the desires of all living entities. At the same time, he wants that they become relieved of suffering. Tough job. So b- back to the ninth chapter of first canto. Yudhisthira is in that space of feeling, oh, what misfortune. And he's feeling, oh, what misfortune, because he's forgotten Krishna's position. Now, how to deal with those emotions, this is part of what we discussed in the morning. How to deal with those emotions that have a justified and even a transcendental dimension, like the feeling of Uddhava. When Krishna left him behind. Hanuman didn't undergo that. Hanuman was left behind, and he had some service, and Hanuman did it happily. And here's Uddhava feeling some other feeling. Does it mean that Hanuman's the better devotee and Uddhava's the lesser devotee? Is that what it means? There's transcendental emotion. He's attached. The gopis felt separation from Krishna. It's not lesser than Hanuman position. It's just a different emotion. There's transcendental emotions, variegated transcendental emotions. And that's a whole science, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu science of the transcendental emotion. Devotion has its emotions in relation to the source of all things, Krishna. It's a big ocean that may have features that, at least externally, if we don't have spiritual acumen, it looks like material. So spiritual emotion isn't material, it's spiritual. Spiritual emotion. Spiritual is spiritual. So he's experiencing a spiritual. Uddhava is experiencing, Yudhisthira is experiencing a spiritual emotion. It can be bewildering, at least mysterious. Now do you need to understand? Devotional service is, in a number of ways, it's mysterious. But as you continue to go through these transcendental literatures and you have a good guide, Srila Prabhupada's Bhaktivedanta purports and the commentaries of our acharyas, then the complicated can become understandable, or the mystery can become understandable, at least to some extent, at least in principle. And then gradually, through maturity of Krishna consciousness, that was easy to say, wasn't it? Through maturity of Krishna consciousness, and there's like eons of time and devotional effort, but through progressive Krishna consciousness, then we can start to understand more of the mystery. And there's no limit to the mystery, there's no limit to increasing our understanding and realizations. Bhagavatam's nice literature, very different. Any discussion? Yeah.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. Um, with a few points. The first is, I think the word Bhishma Dev used here, bewildering, mohayam. I think he used this word as quite significant. On one sense,
Yes. Two
he
different ways.
is expressing the highest truth,
Yeah.
and on at the same time, he is pouring this his heartfelt, overwhelming adoration and affection for Krishna,
Mm-hmm.
because from his point of view, this most uh, majestic, honored and revered supreme personality of Godhead is now just assume a role of a common human being and obliged to social conventions, culture, regulations. It's just he is so much overwhelmed by Krishna this act. And going back to the point of truth, um, because when we talk about bewilder or bewilderment, it means it has to be a deviation from the truth. That
Why?
which, like you say, you are bewildered, then you means you are on the you are not seeing the truth.
Well, it can mean y- y- you're not experiencing, or to your cognizance, the fullness of the truth is not part of your experience, but doesn't mean not seeing. Could be mean, imperfect seeing or partial seeing.
Okay.
Bewilderment doesn't. When because I asked you to say it twice. It doesn't mean you can't see. It may mean that your seeing is impaired or partial, and thus bewildering. I can see something, but I don't see the whole picture.
Okay. Okay. And another like here, what I want to say is, Krishna, he is infinite, unlimited, and because he is infinite, the truth that a living entity can see with relation to Krishna
Mm.
is also unlimited. And here, what is appreciated most by Bhishmadev is Krishna in his Narayana feature. And Krishna on, also has this very sweet or human-like feature that is most appreciated and uh, loved by another group of living entities. Yeah, that is that point. And another thing is, when you talk about Uddhava, his experience, the tribulation of separated from Krishna, I think is when Uddhava is tormented by this separation, I think it does not imply that Krishna is very cold-hearted
Mm.
to just leave him aside, this left him behind. I think Krishna perhaps is experiencing even an intensified degree of separation
Mm-hmm.
from Uddhava.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, it's in both. Let's say the second point first. The feelings of love of Uddhava toward Krishna is just a corresponding feelings of love between Krishna and Uddhava. Same with the gopis. The gopis are given an opportunity to experience love and separation, but Krishna is also experiencing love and separation from the gopis, although he's the one that left the rasa dance. It's an intensification of his loving feelings. I mean, this is the mystery part. It's like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Krishna himself in the mood of the gopis. He flipped it around. Well, he wanted to experience the love that they feel for him as the object. When they're experiencing separation from Krishna in Krishna's manifest pastimes, he is experiencing the intensification of his love for them, or even specifically for Radharani. In that sense, love is a mystery. And it helps to look at both sides of a loving relationship, and then because then the loving relationship can be better understood, although subjectively we can't directly know what Krishna's feeling. Krishna wants to know, he's omniscient, he wants to know the loving feeling of the gopis for him. So it's that's on the second point. There's the exchanges of love are quite amazing and reciprocal. And back to the first point, the emphasis that Bhishma Dev is making is in one case the Narayan feature is superlative, or at least it's mentioned. At the same time, it's not that Bhishma Dev does not know about Krishna's other non-Narayan or the Madhurya features of Krishna's pastimes. He knows. And he's not here in this particular verse 18 emphasizing the nature of Krishna's sweet pastimes in Braja and the loving exchanges that Krishna has with his devotees in Braja. He's not mentioning that in this verse, but he's mentioning that to here in the case of Yudhisthira, because Yudhisthira, he wants, in effect, he wants Yudhisthira to break loose from his sadness, his sorrow over the tribulation, misfortune that just happened, that he was the instrument of, the devastation that came at Kurukshetra battle. So he's not taking him to the sweetness of Krishna's pastimes in Braja, although Bhishma Dev knows about them. He's taking him to another place, the place of acceptance of Krishna's arrangements, of what you're feeling is a tribulation for you, for the misfortune that has come to you. It's the arrangement of the Supreme Person. So it just adds weight to the acceptance of the circumstance. You're the king, the duty of the king. Now you're the king. Krishna wanted it. Give protection. Get on with your protecting business as your service to Krishna and service to those under Krishna's rule. Ultimately, your king is ruling under behalf of the Supreme. Anyone else? Yes.
The points that you mentioned beautifully. Um, Association of devotees is very important,
Yes.
and it gives a great opportunity to serve,
Yes.
and also it gives the opportunity to make those mistakes. I think being in the Grihastha ashram, there are so many things that we maybe overthink, and it makes us not take those important steps
Yes.
that is needed to progress towards the Krishna consciousness. I'm going to take a step back here and kind of recap and come back to this point. The first time when I heard you during the Japa retreat in our temple, um, I was touched, and that whole exercise organized by our temple was beautiful. I till date I try to focus on the points that you shared. So one of the basic things that you mentioned is focus on the first syllable. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. If we are able to focus on the Hare part, then there's a better part to actually connect to the name. That's what that was my takeaway from that Japa retreat session. My question, and again, I'm still trying to understand, being in the Grihastha ashram and trusting the process. How do we even know we are actually making progress or we are going 2 steps, 5 steps back. Um, if you can elaborate a little bit more on that.
I like your question. I like Bhaktivinoda Thakur's answer to your question. It's a classic question. And he provides what we commonly call the litmus test. You know, is it acid or base? And you put some litmus paper, and this color means acid, that color means base. So it's the litmus test is not just in a particular moment, but over a period of time. Is there an increased attraction for the activities of bhakti and the happiness one feels in the activities of bhakti? And on the other side is detachment from the allure of or affinity for material enjoyment. Light is going up and darkness is diminishing. The attraction for happiness being defined by yehi samsparshaja bhoga, senses contacting sense objects, and there's some happiness over there. As that proclivity or tendency is diminishing, that's a sign of advancement. And the opposite, the activities of devotion, like list them, like attending RT, or not just but the happiness one feels in those activities of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, joining kirtan with devotees, and the rendering services, specific, services for the devotees of the Lord, be engaged in the missionary work of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and finding some attraction and happiness in those activities, that my life is moving in that direction and away from the other direction. Not just at a particular moment, but specifically in an over period of time. Is that how things are moving? It in the movement, there's a stage called anishtata, unsteady. Unsteady means sometimes and sometimes, like a sine curve, and sometimes and sometimes. So it's not just at a particular moment of down or up, but over a period of time, there's the axis moving up, the amplitude of material attraction is going down. That's the litmus test.
So it is, and I feel the same way in the ups and the downs, and I can just relate it with one of the examples. Again, I'm just relating it with we blame it in the name of responsibility because we are in this act of having, like my heart would say something. My heart is connected somewhere else. For example, there was this one phase where I was so much involved in work, and it made me not do the rituals that I was trying to get myself in a rhythm into. But every time when I was performing my duties, my heart was still there. So in that way, I still feel, just to maybe convince myself, I feel like, oh, I'm still connected. I am devoting my service in the name of Lord. So I'm doing my duty and I'm still connected. So when I say that, am I justifying my action just to myself and keeping it, oh, it's okay because you're just doing your duty and my connection is still there? Is that a reasoning to myself, or is that still that actually?
I would recommend that two things. I recommend that you evaluate over a period of time, same as your prior question. Are you making progress? Aside from the ups and downs at work and the conflict that, because I'm so involved in work, that I don't have time for my devotional practices. Over time, what's happening with your devotional practices over time? to answer your question, is it just deluding myself to say, well, at least I'm making progress because my mind or some attraction is over there with the devotional practices, although I'm not doing them in the way that I would want to, should do, etc. So it's measure that over time and also see what's actually happening in the practice department, in the sadhana department, aside from, oh, I wish I could do more sadhana, but you actually do more sadhana.
Association with senior devotees around here has definitely
Yeah.
helped me so much more.
So
But
that's association produces a fruit, and the fruit is this awakening of an attraction. So I'm answering your question in two-part answer. One is, if that's consistent, then it's progress from where you were, which was there wasn't even practice, what to speak of anticipation of practice. And it can be in fact deluding yourself. You know, the deluding isn't going to stay for too long. After some time, the delusion is going to become, I'm very comfortable just so. The measure then becomes, are you practically engaging to see it's a delusion or not? Practically engaging in devotional activities. And if there's no movement, then it's delusion.
thank you so much.
It's a trick of the mind. There's many such tricks up to the stage of prema. There's delusional possibilities. So the real measure is the practical over time.
Thank you.
Anything else? Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I want to know, what do you mean by giving respect to the holy name, Guru
Speak
Maharaj?
slowly, please.
Um, what does it mean to give respect to the holy name? When we are chanting, you said we need to have respect for the holy name, Adaram, right? So what does it mean? How does it look like?
What does it mean? What does it look like? What is
Respect for the
respect?
for the holy name.
I'll say it's a big topic, but I'll say a couple things, and then there'll be a japa retreat. At least there's a plan to have a japa retreat here and other places, and I'll be discussing it at the japa retreat more in full. So let's just give a grain of rice rather than the whole pot. According to Hari Bhakti Vilas, one of the measures of what respect looks like is meditating on the meaning of the mantra while you're chanting the mantra. So starts with understanding the meaning of the mantra before you chanting the mantra, but having an understanding of what the meaning of that sound is. And then to explain that, which the meaning of the mantra is, Bhaktivinoda Thakur consistently refers to, in his commentary on Hari Bhakti Vilas, to Gopal Guru Goswami, who wrote a book on the meaning of the mantra. So not just any mantra, Hare Krishna mantra, any mantra. One is meant to meditate on the meaning, not just recite the mantra. And as one's meditating on the meaning of the mantra while reciting the mantra, that's respect. The object is known while you're engaging with the object. That's in part respect. We'll say it negative. Disrespect is you're just making a sound, but you don't really have a a clear understanding of what that sound is about. There's benefit. It's called the boss sound. But the fullness is the meaning of that sound and the sound are understood. So then the explanation given by Gopal Guru Goswami is very simple. It's very basic. What does Hare mean? What does Krishna mean? What does Rama mean? All in terms of Krishna. So the meaning and the power, those two, meaning and the power of the mantra. That, for example, in Rupa Goswami's writings, he has 8 prayers in Ashtaka about the chanting of the holy name. And the second Ashtaka of Rupa Goswami, he writes, the holy name is so powerful that even if it's chanted in an Abbas state, and gives examples of Nam Abbas, still it can free one from the contaminations of material existence. That's how powerful. So meditating on the power and the meaning while chanting is respect. What is it? What does it look like? Exactly how Prabhupada translates it in Nectar of Instruction. Carefully, as opposed to casually or carelessly or mechanically or dutifully, obediently, but with respect. Respect, you look up. So then what is it I'm looking up to? Something that's worthy of respect. So we'll discuss it more. And it's an important feature of our devotional life. From to go from early stages of sadhana bhakti to more progressive stages of sadhana bhakti to the fully mature stage of sadhana bhakti, which moves into bhava bhakti and prema bhakti. So how to do our sadhana bhakti properly? The respect that goes to what makes up sadhana bhakti, and then the object of our sadhana. Same with scripture. Same with association of devotees. Same with deity, the holy dham. Look up. Best respect. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Here comes the microphone.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Uh, if I observe myself in the morning, my consciousness was affected by my previous thoughts, previous lifetimes, and everything. But while listening to Bhagavatam, it feels very nice, very uh, energized, very inspiring. I, I am requesting if you have any tips so that I continue this consciousness level instead of losing it again after going out.
Your question is similar to his question. His question is, how do I measure how I'm making progress, if I'm making progress in fact or not? It's practice. Abhyasa yoga yuktena cetasa nanagamino. That you can make progress by practice. practice done in the right way leads to progress. So you have to again evaluate your subjectively. You evaluate: am I doing the practice carefully? So same terminology, as carefully as with respect to the activity. That someone throws you, someone throws you a rope. You're in the bottom of a well. Grab the rope. So you grab the rope. Then supposing you start like, okay, I'm just now being lifted. You let go of the rope. You're back down to the well again. So just, hold tightly to the instructions. That's the rope. Hold tightly to the instructions and appreciate the beneficial or beneficial aspects of the instructions, the lifting you up power of the instructions, and the kindness of the instructors is an essential part of maintaining the tight hold to the rope. So just follow the instructions with proper mood, and and you're protected. Bhakti will protect you. Okay.
Thank you.
Think we'll end there. Srila Prabhupada ki Gaur Premanandi.
Very cool. She's the Maharaj.